Alright, so we've blocked out a lot of our detail and we want to finish this up, so we want to retain a lot of the volume that we had in the weapon and what we expect to see. So let's go ahead and start right here at the trigger guard. I want to add a couple of loops, so let's go to Edit Poly, Show End Result, and turn on Edge Mode. And let's go to Edit Swift Loop and add in a couple of loops right in here. What that's going to do is it's going to harden up that corner there. I also want to add just a little bit of detail right in here along the trigger guard. There's kind of this crease that happens here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edge Mode, and I'm going to select all of those polygons right in here. And actually, you know what? Let me add just another loop. Let's do this instead. So we'll go to Edit Swift Loop. I'm going to add a loop right here, and then one right here. Let's go to Edge Mode and select both of those loops. Okay. And you know what? Let's do this. Let's select all the polygons because I still want it to be smooth up to that. So we're going to select all of these polygons up to that new loop that we created. So let me show or turn off that Show End Result. So this is what you should have selected. Let's grab our scale tool and just scale that in and the X a little bit. So what that's going to do is it's going to create this little lip right here. And now I'm going to grab these polygons and I'm going to do this on both sides. Okay. And let's use inset. And so by insetting that, you know what, actually let's do this. Let's turn off inset. Let's select those polygons as well, the new portions there. And then let's do inset. Let's take the inset amount down. Let's do something like 0.05 and hit OK. And then whenever we show End Result, look what we get. We get this neat little crease here that we would see on that gun. So I like the way that looks. Okay, so now with that set up there, let's go ahead and start working on the rest of this as it's very blobby still. So let's go ahead and go to Edit Poly, Edge Mode, Edit Swift Loop. I'm going to add in a loop right here. And then let's add one right here. But instead of putting it right here at the edge, let's put it right in the middle because I don't want it to affect the topology that's already here. So let's just add that in there, and then we'll take the edges on the top, which will actually control how sharp that corner is, and we'll push that closer so that way it sharpens up there. All right, awesome. So now with that, let's come in and let's create another crease right across here. So I'll add that in, put that in, and see how that sharpens up there. Let's add one right across here, across the top, just like so. And what that's going to do is it's going to harden up this bottom piece here. And then we'll add one right here. Okay, looks good. Let's add one right here. Okay, so that way the bottom of that is flat again. And let's create a couple right along here because I want these corners to be sharp where that indentation is on the frame. And that's where that swivel piece is going to actually butt right up against that. So we want that to be very angular there. Let's add one right here. Here we go. Looks good. And I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking so far. A couple of things really quickly. I want to be able to create the corner right here. So let's just cut, I would say, let's do a cross on that, but I think that's going to go all the way around to the back. We may be able to get away with it if we just cut right here, but let's go ahead and cut in the middle of that, and then we'll bring those forward. Yeah, let's do that. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and grab these edges right across the top, just like we did earlier, and we'll just pull that forward. Notice how that hardens up there toward the front. Now, remember this corner right here, it's going to be covered up by another piece, and we'll be creating that a little bit later. Okay, we'll create that whenever we get ready to create this piece here. Okay, that's just an extra detail. So we don't have to worry too much about what it gives us in these corners here. Now what we want to do is we want to start retaining the volume that we had along the front and the back of that cylinder. So taking a look at this, just kind of inspecting what we have, everything looks pretty good for the most part. There are a couple of areas that I would want to harden up maybe just a little bit more, maybe like around the edge of the trigger here. So just to kind of look at that, just want to think about adding an edge here. But notice how it goes down and then it loops back around here. I really don't like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the edges on my own and I'll tell it where I want that loop to go. Okay, do the same thing here. And then do that. And I'm just kind of thinking about how that's going to go there. Alright, let's do connect. And so that'll connect with a single segment there. And I'm going to take the slide, I'm going to bring that down. And let's just take it down to something like 80, negative 80 there. And hit OK. Let's take this vertex right here and let's pull that up in the Y. Now it's sliding along that edge because we still have edge constraint turned on. And I'm pretty happy with that. It's not too bad. I'm going to go ahead and right click and target weld this up to here so that way it comes back. It looks pretty good. Alright. So let's take a look at the final result on that. You'll see how that sharpened up there. And that kind of gives us that look that we want there. Alright, cool. Let's also take a look at some of the shapes that we have in our gun. Let's do the same thing on the other side. So I'm always inspecting as I go along, just making sure that everything is looking good, getting the shape that we want out of everything. Let's go ahead and connect that. And let's do positive 80 on that, so that way it's the opposite. And then let's take that vertex, let's move that here, and actually let's just go ahead and target weld it to there. And that looks good. Let's take a look at the turbo smooth. Looking pretty good. Okay. It is kind of creasing this a little bit. That looks a little too soft to me still. So let's go ahead and add in another loop in there. And you know what, I may be able to just add a loop using the Swift loop like this. Yeah, let's do that. And that's going to do it on both sides as well. So we'll add that one in there. Take a look at the turbo smooth there. For the most part, that gives us a nice little highlight, but right here it's pulling away too much. So we'll go ahead and we'll take care of that. Let's do this. Let's right click and cut from here down to here and then down to that section right there. Okay. Take a look at the turbo smooth, see how that hardens up, gives us that nice little crease there. Just to kind of remind you, this is the high poly mesh, and so once we start getting down to the smoothing phase like this, where we're trying to get a very specific look, topology can kind of take a back seat. It's not something that we're going to be using except for baking out the detail that we get, and so the detail is what's most important. So if something works, even if it's an n-gon or a polygon, or an n-gon or a quad or triangle, it will work either way, and we can go ahead and we can work with that. Okay, so looking pretty good. Just a couple of other things. Let's hit Z so we can focus in on this. A couple of other things. Let's make sure that we get their volume retained up here on the front. Let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of loops on the front here, and then we'll do the same thing along the back. Okay, and then we'll just use connect. Okay, I just selected that ring there, so let's use two sections. Let's set our pinch to 0 and our slide to 0, and then we'll adjust that pinch again. Let's go ahead and take that up to about, let's do 50 on that. Hit OK. There we go. And then let's take a look at what we have in our turbo smooth. It looks pretty good, but now we've got this odd little pinch right here. That's because we have an extra segment coming right up the side there, so we want to get rid of that. So to do this, let's go to vertex mode and target weld. Let's target weld from here to there, and we're going to continue to do that up to this point right here, and that should give us the result that we want. Let's go ahead and do it on the other side as well. Pardon me for skipping around a little bit. My zoom is starting to not understand where I want it to zoom. Okay. Alright, so there we've got that, and let's take a look at our end result. Okay, nice and smooth there, looking good. And then we have one more edge that we want to add in, and that's going to help us to get that nice sharp corner right here. So let's go to edge mode, edit, swift loop, and let's cut right across that. Great. Okay, so there we go. Now the final thing is to get the edges that we need on this right here. It's still very round on that portion, and it should be very square and almost sharp. Okay, and so let's go ahead and add those edges in. Now at this point, I don't want to add in like a swift loop. I mean, if I tried that, might get us close, but I think it's going to add a loop in areas that I don't want it to add loops. So what I'll do is I'll just come in and I'll just select the edges that I want to connect to. So I'm going to select these three, and we're just going to go right down the row here. And let's go all the way down the front. Okay. And then we're going to go down the side. I'm going to go to, let's say, this point right here. And let's connect with two segments. Hit OK. Let's take a look at that end result. You'll notice here that it's starting to pinch just a little too much. Okay, not giving me the exact result that I want. So let's go back to edge mode, and let's hit Control Z a couple of times, and then go back to edge mode and select that extra one there. Okay, now let's go ahead and connect that. And that gives us a pretty good result. We've got a little bit of pinching right here, but we can actually take care of that by possibly pulling this edge right here. So take these two edges and just pull those back in the Y. Make sure you have your edge constraint turned on. Okay, and you'll notice that on that corner it starts to relax that a little bit. So now you see that that looks like worked metal. There's always going to be a little bit of stress where metal is being changed in direction. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're staying authentic on that. All right, and then finally, right here along the back, we need to do the exact same thing. So let's go ahead and go to vertex mode, or actually edge mode. Let's select these edges, just like we did before. I'm going to go ahead and turn off that show end result, so that way we don't have that working against us. And then we'll go to right up to here, and then I'm going to go ahead and connect that with two edges. Hit OK. That's going to go all the way down. Now again, let's take a look at our turbo smooth, and you'll see that we get kind of an odd pinch here. Let's go up to the top. Let's inspect that. That looks pretty good. I'm okay with that. But right down here, we get this really weird pinch. But remember, we've got this metal piece that's going to be covering that up. This is just the high poly. This is just going to bake out what we can see. And so what we'll do is we'll just cover that up with that extra piece, so that way we don't have to worry about that. All right, so we have finished out the high poly version of our gun here. Might be a couple of things to do on your gun. Maybe take care of some of these pinches a little bit. You may smooth out some of these edges a little bit more. So turn off that edge constraint. Maybe pull that up, kind of round off that corner a little bit. Okay, kind of smooth that out some, just like so. And then kind of rework that. So that looks pretty good. I'm happy with the way that looks so far. All right, so let's move on to our next piece, and I want to take care of the barrel next because that's the next part in the assembly. So we're going to take care of it.